For decades, the middle class was the backbone of the American dream. It meant stability, a decent home, reliable health care, a car in the driveway, and the belief that if you worked hard, life would slowly get better. But today, something feels different. Millions of families who once considered themselves comfortable are now one unexpected bill away from financial stress. Rent is rising faster than paychecks. Groceries cost more every month. College feels out of reach. Retirement feels uncertain. And this isn't just happening in one country. It's happening everywhere. The middle class isn't shrinking by accident. It's disappearing by design. What the middle class actually is. Before we talk about why it's vanishing, we need to be clear about what the middle class really means. In the United States, the middle class isn't defined by luxury. It's defined by security. You earn enough to cover your basic needs without panic. You can plan for the future. You're not rich, but you're not constantly afraid of falling behind. Historically, middle-class households earned steady wages, owned property, had access to affordable education, and believed their children would do better than they did. That belief, upward mobility, was the real foundation of the middle class. And that belief is now cracking. Wages stopped growing, but costs didn't. One of the biggest reasons the middle class is disappearing is painfully simple. Wages stopped keeping up. In the U.S., productivity has increased dramatically over the past 40 years. Workers produce more value than ever before. Technology made businesses faster, leaner, and more profitable. But paychecks didn't rise the same way. Adjusted for inflation, the average American worker earns almost the same today as they did decades ago. Meanwhile, the cost of living exploded. Housing prices surged. Healthcare costs skyrocketed. Education became a debt trap. So even when people work harder, longer hours, and multiple jobs, they're running in place. This isn't laziness. It's math. The housing trap. Homeownership was once the clearest symbol of middle-class success. Today, it's becoming a luxury. In many U.S. cities, home prices have doubled or even tripled in a single generation. Meanwhile, mortgage rates fluctuate wildly, and rent keeps climbing with no ceiling. Young adults are delaying marriage, children, and homeownership, not by choice, but by necessity. And when housing consumes 40 or even 50% of your income, it leaves nothing for savings, emergencies, or investing in the future. Without property, wealth becomes harder to build. Without wealth, the middle class slowly erodes. Debt is replacing stability. Another major shift is how people survive financially. Instead of rising wages, the system replaced income with debt. Credit cards, student loans, car loans, buy now pay later plans. Debt creates the illusion of stability while quietly draining the future. Student loan debt alone has reshaped an entire generation in America. Many graduates start adulthood already behind, paying for degrees that no longer guarantee financial security. The middle class once used debt strategically. Now debt is often used just to survive. That's a dangerous shift. Jobs became less secure. The old promise was simple: stay loyal to a company and it will take care of you. That promise is gone. Stable, long-term jobs with pensions and benefits have been replaced by contract work, gig labor, and short-term employment. Even white-collar professionals now face layoffs with little warning. Technology didn't just automate factories, it destabilized careers. When income becomes unpredictable, people stop planning long-term. They delay buying homes, starting families, and saving for retirement. Uncertainty is poison to the middle class. Wealth is concentrating at the top. As the middle class shrinks, wealth isn't disappearing, it's moving upward. A small percentage of people now control more wealth than entire sections of society. In the U.S., the top earners benefit from rising asset values, tax advantages, and investment opportunities that most Americans never access. Meanwhile, the middle class relies almost entirely on wages that aren't growing. This creates a widening gap where people either move up quickly or slide down slowly. And once someone falls out of the middle class, climbing back becomes incredibly difficult. By the time most people realized the middle class was shrinking, the rules had already changed. The system didn't collapse, it evolved, and not in favor of ordinary workers. Globalization changed who the economy works for. Globalization promised cheaper goods, bigger markets, and global opportunity. In many ways, it delivered. but it also rewrote the deal for the middle class. Manufacturing jobs that once supported entire American communities were outsourced to countries with lower labor costs. Corporations increased profits, consumers got cheaper products, but millions of workers lost stable, well-paying jobs. The jobs that replaced them often paid less, offered fewer benefits, and came with less security. The middle class was built on local stability. Globalization prioritized global efficiency, and efficiency doesn't protect families, it protects margins. Technology didn't just replace jobs, it changed power. Automation and AI didn't arrive suddenly. They arrived quietly, line by line, system by system. At first, machines replaced repetitive labor. Then they replaced analysis. Now they're replacing decision-making. Technology increased productivity, but ownership of that productivity stayed concentrated. If you own the technology, you win. If you sell labor, you compete against machines. For middle-class workers, this meant pressure from both ends, lower wages from automation, and higher expectations from employers. The result, more stress, less leverage, and fewer guarantees. Government policy played a bigger role than we admit. The disappearance of the middle class isn't just a market outcome, it's a policy outcome. Over time, tax systems shifted, labor protections weakened, corporate lobbying increased. Policies that once favored workers slowly tilted toward capital. This doesn't mean governments destroyed the middle class, but they stopped actively protecting it. Healthcare tied to employment, education funded through debt, retirement shifted from pensions to personal responsibility. Risk was transferred from institutions to individuals, and when risk lands on families with limited savings, stability disappears fast. Inflation hit the middle class the hardest. Inflation doesn't hurt everyone equally. If you own assets, stocks, real estate, businesses, inflation often works in your favor. But if your income comes mainly from wages, inflation feels like a slow bleed. Prices rise immediately. Wages lag behind. For the American middle class, inflation quietly eroded purchasing power year after year. Even small increases compound over time, turning comfortable into stretched and stretched into barely holding on. People didn't suddenly get poorer. Their money just stopped going as far. Why this is a global problem? This isn't just an American story. Across Europe, Asia, and emerging economies, the same pattern appears. Middle-income households shrinking, wealth concentrating, and economic anxiety spreading. Different countries have different systems, but the pressure points are similar. Housing, healthcare, education, job security. The middle class depended on balance. The modern economy rewards extremes. What happens when the middle class disappears? A shrinking middle class doesn't just affect individuals, it reshapes society. Consumer spending weakens. Political polarization grows. Trust in institutions declines. When people feel the system no longer rewards effort, frustration replaces hope. History shows that strong middle classes stabilize nations. Weak middle classes destabilize them. That's why this issue matters far beyond personal finances. Is the middle class gone forever? Not necessarily, but it won't return on its own. Rebuilding the middle class requires intentional choices. Investment in education without crushing debt. Policies that reward work, not just ownership. Affordable housing, and systems that reduce risk instead of pushing it downward. It also requires honest conversations about wages, technology, fairness, and what economic success should actually look like. The middle class was never guaranteed. It was built, and it can be rebuilt. The disappearance of the middle class didn't happen overnight, and it won't be fixed overnight either. But understanding why it's happening is the first step toward changing it. If this video helped you see the bigger picture, or reflected what you're experiencing in your own life, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because the future of the middle class isn't just an economic issue. It's a human one.